Good morning, Lake Church family. Such a blessing to gather together as we can and online and through WCNL. We love and appreciate each one of you. We welcome you. We invite you to take a few minutes this morning and just join us in worship to our precious Heavenly Father. I just want to start out this morning with a song, There's Plenty of Room in God's Family. Plenty of room in the family, room for the young and the old. There's plenty of happiness, plenty of love, plenty of room in the fold. There's plenty of food at the table, no need to economize there. There's all you can hold and there's plenty beside. The storehouse will never be bare. There's plenty of room in the family, room for the young and the old. Plenty of happiness, plenty of love, plenty of room in the fold. If you're lonely and looking for friendship, if you're lost and you want to be found, there's plenty of room in the family of God. There's plenty of love to go round. There's plenty of room in the family, room for the young and the old. There's plenty of happiness, plenty of love, plenty of room in the fold. Plenty of happiness, plenty of love, plenty of room in the fold. What a blessing. There's plenty of room in God's family. And you know, it's all because of Jesus. He made the way for us to be part of this divine family through his death, burial, and resurrection. And I just invite you to worship with me this morning. God is so good. Sing with us wherever you are. God, you're so good. Tell him this morning. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Amazing love that welcomes me, the kindness of mercy that bought with love wholeheartedly my soul undeserving. God, you're so good. Thank you, Father. God, you're so good. Worship you, Lord. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Behold the cross, age you lay, and hour by hour, the dead raised, the sinner saved, the work of your power. Tell you, Jesus, God, you're so good. God, you're so favored, anointed, I'm filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. Highly favored, anointed, and filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. And should this life bring suffering, Lord, I will remember what Calvary has bought for me, both now and forever. God, you're so good. Worship the Lord this morning. God, you're so good. He meets us where we are. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Tell him just you and the Lord. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Amen. Praise His holy name. Thank God for His mercies in our lives every single day. There's a passage that God wrote through the Apostle John. It's in the last book of the Bible. Guys, we know the end of the story. That's the exciting thing. I want to share that passage with you. You can find it in Revelation chapter 5. John wrote, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals. For you were slain, and you've redeemed us to God by your blood, out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth." And then John said, "And I looked, and I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice, 'Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. Blessing and honor and glory forever, and power be to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb,'" Jesus, "forever and ever." And then the 4 living creatures said, "Amen." And the 24 elders fell down and worshipped him whose lives forever and ever. Oh Lord Jesus, we thank you that you are worthy. You paid the price for our sin. Lord, you alone are worthy, and you redeemed us to God by your precious, precious blood. Lord, we join your people this morning from every tribe and every tongue and every nation, because you have made us kings and priests to our God. Holy Spirit, receive our praise to the Father and to the Son, as worthy as we sing. Do you feel the world is broken with you. Do you feel the shadows deepen with you? But do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? We do. Do you wish that you could see it all made new? We do. All creation groaning, it is a new creation coming, yes it is the glory of the Lord to be, life within our midst, it is it good that we remind ourselves of this? It is. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? Lion of Judah, he conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy of this? He is. Ask yourself, does the Father truly love us? Yes. Does the Spirit move among us? He does. And is Jesus our Messiah, forever those he loves? Yes, he does. Does our God intend to dwell again with us? He does. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? Lion of Judah, he conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. From every people and tribe, every nation and tongue, he has made us a king and priest to God, to reign with his Son. Is he worthy? Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy? Is he worthy? Is he worthy of this? He is. Is he worthy? Is he worthy? Yes. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break that seal and open the scroll? Lion of Judah, he conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. From every people and tribe, every nation and tongue, he has made us a kingdom and priests to God, to reign with the Son. He is worthy. Is he worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is he worthy? Is he worthy? Is he worthy of this? Oh, yes, he is. He is worthy. He is worthy. He is.
Amen.
Amen. He is God. Thank you. Lord, we offer our worship to you. Because you alone are worthy. Thank you for the precious blood of Jesus. Lord, as that silence in heaven took place, and everywhere was search for one who was worthy. God, you alone are worthy. And we praise you today in Jesus' name.
Amen. Good morning. Welcome to Lake Church. It's so good to be here with you. Honestly, though, it'll be even better to be here with you when you're here. But thank you so much for taking the time to start your week out worshiping Jesus. As we sang this morning, He is worthy of our praise. Of anyone who has ever been or who ever will be, there is no one like Jesus. There's no one like Jesus. So Jesus, I thank you this morning that in our homes, in our cars, even here in this space, that we can meet with you. You promised that when we gather for the purpose of being with you, that you were here. You were here in our midst. You were here in our cars. You were here in our homes. And Jesus, we thank you for that promise. We thank you for that promise fulfilled. I ask God that you give comfort where comfort is needed. I pray for each person, Lord. You know every need. You know the anxieties that keep people up at night. Jesus, you know the worries and the concerns. And not only do you know, Jesus, but you care. And I thank you for your compassion. And Lord, I pray that you would touch your people, that you would comfort their hearts. Jesus, thank you that you are the balm of healing. Lord, I thank you that you are the comforter and that you are our strength. And it's in your precious name. Amen. Amen. The title of my message this morning that I feel like God was leading me to share with you is called What to Do When You Are Alone. Or maybe more appropriately titled What to Do When You Are Feeling Alone. What to do when you are feeling alone. The Bible tells us some amazing things about Jesus. And in Hebrews, it says that He is our friend who sticks closer than a brother. He promises that He will never leave us. He will never forsake us. In fact, in Hebrews chapter 13, it says, you don't have to put your trust, you don't have to put your dependence on the things that the world puts its dependence on, because you have a provider. You have a promise from God, the one who spoke and the cosmos were formed. He says he will never leave you and he will never forsake you. Now, for some of you, that may seem like good news. Turn to your neighbor and say he's always there. He's always there. I was reading also in Proverbs this morning, and Proverbs says, depending on your translation, it says, a man that has friends must show himself friendly. A man who has friends must show himself friendly. And so before this whole social distancing thing, if you were a person who had a lot of friends, if you were someone who had people that you enjoyed getting to spend time with, a lot of that may have had to do with your skills and the abilities that you learned, hopefully, when you were in kindergarten about not shoving and getting in line and doing things correctly so that you can be a proper friend. A man that has friends must show himself friendly. But no matter what your friendship skill set is, there is a promise that comes in the second part of that verse. Thank you so much, Crystal. You are amazing. And she went She-Hulk over there on the pulpit. I appreciate that. We had a deal when we got married, because I'm a little bit taller than she is. I said that I would lift heavy things and I would reach high things. But he that finds a wife finds a good thing. But can you say what more? Anyway, in Proverbs, it says, a man that has friends must show himself friendly, but there's a promise. It says that there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother, and his name is Jesus. That means no matter how snarly you get, no matter how irritating you might find yourself, I know after 5 weeks stuck at home, there are probably some mornings that you can't even stand yourself. No matter how you're feeling, no matter how your emotional state or your mental health is, Jesus promises that he is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. You are not getting rid of him if you have a relationship with him. Philippians 1:6 says, he which hath begun a good work in you will continue it until the day of Christ. And so if you are a believer this morning, if you're someone who has a relationship with Jesus, I want to encourage you today that no matter how you feel, because the truth is not based on your feelings, no matter how you feel, Jesus is there, and he's never going to leave, and he cares for you. He cares for you. The title of my sermon this morning is, Who Do You Lean On? Who do you lean on? We're going to go to 1 Samuel chapter 30. 1 Samuel chapter 30 for a case study in the life of King David. A case study in the life of King David. But what we discover about 1 Samuel chapter 30 is David was not yet king. Those of you who know the story knew that he was a shepherd boy. He was shorter than most. He was the brother who was often forgotten. In fact, there was a time when the prophet of God came to anoint a new king, and David's father, Jesse, brought the whole family together for a big feast so that they could eat dinner with the man of God. Only one problem, they forgot to bring David. David was out in the field watching the sheep. And so he was somebody who throughout his life was used to being overlooked, neglected, and forgotten. He was not the tallest or the best looking, but he was somebody who you may have missed out on in a crowd. And so for all of you out there this morning who maybe were not the captain of the football team, you were not the head cheerleader, you were more comfortable by yourself than you were in large groups of people, then this message might be a word for you. David got to spend some time alone in the presence of God. He got to spend some time alone in the presence of God. And what I've discovered in the years that I've been reading the Bible is that there were many men and women of God who the world would have often overlooked. They would have often overlooked because it didn't seem like they had the skills to pay the bills. There were men and women of God who would spend large sections of their time in isolation, often misunderstood by the people who were around them, sometimes even by their own family. You'll remember in the life of David when he came to bring bread and cheese to his brothers when they were fighting the Philistines. Come on, somebody. Anybody who brings you cheese, that's some good news. Can I get an amen? Amen. I wish we had cheese. I wish we had cheese delivery service. That should be a thing. But he came to bring bread and cheese to his brothers as they were fighting the battle. And when he sees the giant Goliath, he says, is there not a cause? Is there not a reason? Doesn't that make something inside of you overflow with turmoil, and you say things should not be this way? Somebody ought to do something about the injustice of it all. That's divine discontent. Sometimes there are things that God places inside of you that keep you up at night. And the reason that God has placed it inside of you is because He wants to empower you so that you can do something about it. That's divine discontent. But in that moment where David brings bread and cheese to his brothers and he sees the giant Goliath Philistine, and he calls out with righteous indignation and he says, is there not a cause? Shouldn't anybody, somebody, turn to your neighbor and say maybe somebody else, shouldn't somebody do something about it? Even in that situation, it would be one of the highlights of David's life. His brothers looked at him square in the face and they said, David, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? What are you doing coming up, taking Instagram photos of the battle? You just want to be a big shot back home in Bethlehem. Who did you leave those few sheep that you were responsible for? Who's watching those sheep? You better just get back on home, boy. Get back up on home and let the real men fight the battle. You see, David had experienced a lifetime of isolation and misunderstanding. He was not anybody's first choice, but he was God's pick. He was God's pick because David had a promise. God had promised him that after Saul went to eternity, that David was going to be the next king. David was going to be the next king. He was going to be the leader of the nation of Israel. And so who do you lean on when it seems as if you are alone? Who do you lean on when it seems as if you are alone? I want to encourage you this morning to lean on Jesus. To lean on Jesus. We've seen in Proverbs and in Hebrews, He's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Even if you're not friendly, you might have many companions, but He's the one who promises never to leave. He's seen you at your worst, and yet He is still there. You can lean on Jesus. And secondly, not only can you lean on Him, but you can trust in His promises. You can trust in the personal promises that Jesus has made to you through His Word, because His promises are true. The Bible tells us that God has taken the name of Jesus and He has given Him a name that is above every name, and at the name of Jesus every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that He is Lord. The name of Jesus is pretty important. But Jesus says that He values His Word even above His name. He values His Word even above His name. That means that when Jesus promises you something, you can trust that. We used to say back home in Kansas, that's news that you can take to the bank. You can take it to the bank. Turn to your neighbor and say, it's not fake. It's not fake. When Jesus promises you something, you can trust that His Word will always be fulfilled. So who do you lean on when you feel alone? You can lean on Jesus, and you can trust in His promises. You can trust in His promises. That leads us to our story for today in 1 Samuel chapter 30, starting in verse 1. David is no longer a shepherd, but he's not yet a king. He's sort of in the middle. You might call that the waiting room. He's no longer a shepherd, but he's not yet a king. He's actually been going around leading a group of discontents. Everyone was gathered to him who was disturbed, who was in debt, and who was depressed. They gathered themselves to Jesus. Now turn to your neighbor and say, that sounds like a real party. It's that, man, it sounds like hanging out with you, doesn't it? Oh, Father. With friends like that, who needs enemies? Everyone who is discouraged, disturbed, discontent, and in debt, they gathered themselves to Jesus. David. They gathered themselves to David. They gathered themselves to Jesus too. They were called disciples. But anyway, that's a different story. They gathered themselves to David, and they went around. And David was a soldier of fortune. He was a soldier of fortune. Those of you who are old enough to remember the Magnificent Seven, the greatest movie ever made, the greatest Western ever made, where Yul Brynner, the old version, not the new version with Star Wars, but anyway, Yul Brynner goes and he goes into a town and he leads a group of soldiers of fortune, and they come in and they set the captives free. They set the captives free. That's what David was doing. It was like Robin Hood and his merry men. They would just go from place to place, working to liberate captives, working to set captives free. He was a soldier of fortune. He was no longer a shepherd. He was not yet a king. And in that moment, David answers a Craigslist ad for the Philistines. The Philistines are preparing to go to war. In 1 Samuel chapter 29, they're preparing to go to war. And David sees the ad, so he takes his men, and they go and they apply for a job working for the Philistines. Now, right about this moment, as you're listening to the story, you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute. Turn to your neighbor and say, that's not right. That's not right. Because didn't David become famous just a few chapters earlier for fighting the greatest giant of the Philistines named Goliath? And so here we find David no longer a shepherd, not yet a king, and he's leading a group of soldiers who are disturbed, depressed, and in debt. He's leading them to answer a job posting, doing work that you would not expect him to do, working for the Philistines. And I know, just hearing me say that probably sends shockwaves through you. You're like, David working for the Philistines? There's no way. It wouldn't happen. It would be like Tom Brady leaving the Patriots. It couldn't happen. It's not within the realm of possibility. But that's exactly what David did. David went with his men and he applied for a job, being soldiers of fortune for the Philistines. He was actually going to work for the enemy. Now I want you to take just a moment and I want you to think about, for not too long, I want you to think about maybe some of the lowest points that you've reached in your life. A time when you are not in the place where you used to be, but you're not yet where you thought you were going to be. You're in between. You thought, man, 2020, this was going to be my year. We're going to take the palace. We're going to do all the things that I expected, that I anticipated, that God had promised to me. And I'm not where I once was, but I'm not where I thought I was. And in those moments, the people that you surround yourself with, if you're not careful, in those moments, the people that you surround yourself with can begin to affect your thinking. They can begin to affect not just what you think and how you feel, but they can begin to affect the actions that you involve yourself in. David was surrounded by everyone who was disturbed, discontent, and in debt, and he finds himself leading them to answer a job working for the enemy. But in that moment, do me a favor, turn to your neighbor and say, but God is good.
But God is good.
But God is good. God is good. I heard Jensen Franklin say a few years ago that he grew up as someone who was a child in ministry, and he said it's not as a pastor's kid who met Jesus at an early age. He said it's not that we couldn't sin, it's that we couldn't enjoy it as much as some of you could. He said there were times that I know when I was running the wrong direction as fast as I could, but it was the prayers of my family that was holding me in check. It's the promises of God. It's not that, those of you who know Jesus, it's not that you don't sin, but it's that He puts you in a protection. He puts you in a place where you cannot enjoy it the way that some others could. Things things they don't put in the brochure. Things they don't put in the brochure. As David was leading his men to make a bad decision, going and working for the enemy because of the promise that God had made to him that he was someday going to be a king, God protected him in that situation. God protected David even when David was not leaning on the promises that God had given him. I'm so thankful that we serve a God who is bigger than we are. He is bigger than our hopes and our ambitions. And can I just be completely honest with you this morning? And can I tell you God's plan and purpose for your life is even bigger than your happiness. It's even bigger than your comforts. It's even bigger than all the good things that you want for yourself. And can I tell you that God wants even more for you than you could ever hope, dream, think, or imagine. And so as David leads his band of merry men to go and to work for the enemy, the Philistines do a background check on David. And so they start looking at all of his old social media profiles. Hashtag dead Philistine. Hashtag that's a large sword. Hashtag 5 smooth stones. And so they start pulling up some of the pictures from David's past. And as he's about to step into the job interview, they're like, oh, wait a minute. We don't want David working for Philistine Incorporated because isn't this the David who was known for killing giants? And so the Philistines take David and his merry men and they send him out and they say, guys, go back home. There's not even a job for you working for the enemy. You know, it's funny, it's not funny, it's actually tragic, but you hear so many stories of people who reach the top pinnacles of success, who feel like they had to make a deal with the devil in order to achieve what they thought that they actually wanted. And I remember hearing a story about somebody who said, I tried to make a deal with the devil, but he didn't even want me. He didn't even want me. That's about how David was feeling right in that moment. Because here he is leading his group of depressed, disturbed, and dead men to work as soldiers of fortune for the enemy. And even in that instance, the enemy didn't want him. The enemy didn't want him. There are times when even Satan thinks that you've messed up your life so bad that he could, even if he helped, he couldn't make it worse. He couldn't make it worse. But in those moments when you find yourself in the darkest pit of despair, I want to let you know this morning that Jesus still wants you. He is the friend who never leaves you. He is the friend who is always by your side. Though everyone forsakes you, he will not forsake you if you have a relationship with him. So David and his defeated group of mighty men begin to head back home. And as they arrive back at the camp, rather than hearing the sounds of livestock and cattle and seeing their children run out to meet them, they are met with the sounds of silence. And they discovered that while they were gone, while they were going to the Philistines to interview, to be soldiers of fortune, another band of marauding raiders had come in and they had stolen everything that they had. They had burned their houses and they had taken their wives, their children, and their family as hostage. I don't know about you, one of the things that I learned in early age is that when you're going through something, never in that moment say, well, hey, at least it couldn't get any worse. Right? at least it couldn't get any worse. Because in the moment, like I want this to be encouraging, but do me a favor, turn to your neighbor and say, it can always get worse. It can always get worse. I turned into Lake Church live stream this morning. What did you learn in church today? It can always get worse. This has been your positive and encouraging word. It can always get worse. But hold on. The reason it can always get worse is because even in its worst, you actually have it better than you think. You actually have it better than you think. As things begin to be stripped away, we learn that we have so much more to be grateful for than we ever thought. There are things that we even forgot to say thank you for. Like, I'm so grateful that I get up every morning morning, and I don't even have to think about it. I just break. I wake up, the brain clicks in, the heart. I started to say starts pumping. Hopefully, it kept pumping while I was asleep. The heart keeps pumping. The oxygen, all the muscles work. All those things that I didn't forget to be thankful for, because we have so much more to be grateful for than we ever even remember. And so in this moment, when it seems that everything is stripped away, David's mighty men, remember these are those who were discouraged, in debt, and discontent. They gather around David, and it says that they intended to stone him. No, not like that, Vermont. Not like that. They intended to stone him. Heavy rocks, not drugs. Hashtag rocks, not drugs. They were going to take heavy rocks, and they were going to say, David, you've been such a great leader. We've all decided that we're having an election, and we want to send you on to eternity right now. And it happens often when people are in the midst of crisis. What we say in sober recovery is hurting people hurt people. Hurting people hurt people. Remember that if you encounter people that are going through difficulties that they may not have experienced before, remember that hurting people hurt people. It may not be specifically that they're mad at you. It may just be that they're going through something that you can't see. So have an extra measure of grace, and remember, hurting people hurt people. Also, if you see them coming at you with large rocks, run fast. Run fast. They told David, we're gonna stone you, because not only are we jobless, homeless, we are now familyless, because our families have been taken away. There is nothing left to live for, so we're going to kill you. You're going to kill you. And you thought your work environment was awesome. Huh. And in that moment, David does something that I want to invite you. This is the secret that you will need in your life if you have a relationship with Jesus. This is the thing that will be the difference between your faith being shipwrecked and you preparing to reach into eternity and to draw strength from the relationship that you actually have. It's found in 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6. It says, "But his men intended to stone him, but David strengthened himself in the Lord." David encouraged himself in the Lord. Now, before I explain that verse, I want to tell you how important community is. I want to tell you how important community is, because as Americans, we have so many wonderful things going for us. One of the things that we've developed is a sense of rugged individualism. Just me, I can do it. I did it my way. As Frank Sinatra said, and we miss out on some of the Middle Eastern context with which our faith was born, in that church happens in community. There has to be relationship. In fact, ironically, the first week of the shutdown, the message that I had prepared to preach, about 3 months of planning, the message that I was going to preach was on not forsaking the assembling of yourselves together. Don't worry, I fell onto it. I'll preach it later. But community is so important. In fact, community is so important that I am not the church, but we are. We are. The church is an institution. It's an organism that has been established by God, just like the family, for our benefit, and so we can accomplish His purposes. By myself, I'm not the church, but together we are. We are. Community is important. In fact, I want to hit this just a little bit harder, so I brought my big hammer. I want to hit this just a little more. Community is so important. This may shock some of you, and I apologize to some other pastors that I know. This may shock some of you. Community is so important. The community was given to the early church even before the completed Word of God. It's that important. It's that important. We need each other. Just read through the New Testament letters that Paul wrote sometimes and see how many times he says, one another. One another. We need each other. Community is important. But What do you do when it's not available? Because God established a church to fulfill the purposes that the church was designed to do. But the church is made up of people who are imperfect. And the world that we live in is a world that has been affected by sin. And I can promise you, if you are part of the church long enough, it's going to hurt you. If you eat food long enough, you're going to get food poisoning. What do you do when community becomes unavailable? Even before the church was established, God made another method of community that was called the family. The family was a unit that was made of a mother and a father and children that they were given responsibility for, to care, to teach, to train, to nurture, to encourage in the admonition of the Lord. But if you're over the age of 10, you know that there are family units. I hope it's not yours. There are family units that even though the family was given as a design by God for community, for good purposes, there are family units that are dysfunctional, that are full of hurts, jealousy, and pain. What do you do when you can't depend on? What do you do when you can't lean on the structures that God has designed for you to lean on? What do you do when the church is unavailable? What do you do when the family is dysfunctional? What do you do when even your friends, even your small group, reaches a place of toxicity where you gather for a prayer group, but it's just one person complaining after another, and it's like, man, if we put all the good things that we have together, we don't even have enough to buy a dead skunk. What do you do when the things, the good things that God has given us to lean on end up failing us and falling apart? And here's the message. Who do you lean on when you are alone? It's a message that David learned, that he began to fully understand in 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6. It says, when his small group was preparing to stone him, David strengthened himself in the Lord. In the Word. David encouraged himself in the Lord. You see, Jesus is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Every good and perfect gift that we have comes as a gift from God. The feeling of love between a husband and his spouse, a husband and wife, it comes from God. The feeling of nurture that a father and a mother gives, it's designed by God, and it comes from God. The feeling of friendship, having somebody who has your back and you have their back, and you're willing to charge hell with a water pistol together, it comes from God. The purpose of the church, to gather together to lift up the name of Jesus and draw the community into relationship with Him, it comes from God. But what do you do when none of that is available? There is one who never leaves you or forsakes you, and His name is Jesus. His name is Jesus. And David, in that moment of absolute isolation, reached out to the one who had been holding him up all those years when he was out in the field washing the sheep by himself, when his brothers were not available, when his father had forgotten, when it was just him. He developed a relationship with God. And so in that moment, he takes a moment. He's about to be stoned. In that moment, he takes a moment and he calls out to God. He says, God, I got nobody left. I got nobody left. And in that moment, Jesus says, David, I'm here. David, I'm here. I love you. I love you. I'm never going to leave you. Though it seems like there's a wall of fire around you, I'm not forsaking you. David, I thought you were to die for. In fact, in a few hundred years, I'm going to die on the cross so that your sins can be washed away. And so that we can be together forever in a world that's not affected by betrayal and pain and disease. David, I'm right here. And David does something really unique. It says he calls for the priest. He calls for the priest. Now remember, David wasn't a priest. He wasn't a shepherd. He wasn't yet a king. And in fact, in this moment, David has no titles that he can define himself by. I'm like the best archer in the world, stripped away. I'm like, man, I can shear sheep like nobody's business. Gone. David, I'm David. I'm the giant killer with 5 smooth stones, man. I went in and Goliath's cell. Gone. David, the leader, the one who takes people who are discouraged, disturbed, discontent, and debt, the one who gathers them together and becomes a mighty man. Gone. See, when everything that we use to value ourselves, when everything that we use to create the identity of who we think we are in our head, when all of that is stripped away, Jesus is still there. And he says, I'm the friend you never leave. Even closer than a family member. I will never leave you or forsake you. And so David calls out, he says, bring a priest and bring the ephod. Now, if you don't know much about Jewish religious tradition from 3,500 years ago, you probably don't know what the ephod is, but that's okay. That's okay. The ephod was a vest. Turn to your neighbor and say, vest are cool. Vests are cool. I remember the first time somebody brought me a vest, and I thought, man, I will never wear that. Vests are just dorky looking. I'm never going to wear a vest. And then I discovered, what do you do when your body's cold but your arms are hot? Vests. That's where it's at. I think they're terribly comfortable. I think everybody's going to be wearing them at some point. But anyway, vests are cool. So the ephod was a special vest that was worn only by the high priest. And on the ephod there was a breastplate made up of precious stones. Turn to your neighbor and say it was valuable. It was valuable. Not only was it made of precious stones, but it had some elements that we actually don't know what they are. Uman and Thummim. It sounds like a rap song or maybe a spice. It had some elements that we actually don't know what they are. And the high priest would wear this vest with the special stones on it, and he would go into the Holy of Holies, and he would communicate with God on behalf of the nation of Israel. Now catch this. David's about to be stoned, and he has this moment with God where he encourages, he strengthens himself in the Lord. He draws into deep waters. I hope you brought your shovel this morning. He draws into deep waters. He remembers the promises that he has from God, and he calls for the ephod. I was reading that, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. David, where did you get the ephod? It means the priest must have been traveling. And so he calls out and he asks for the garment that the high priest wears, and he puts it on. And I thought, whoa, David, you can't do that. First off, you can't do that. You can't wear an ephod because you're not king yet. Second off, you can't wear an ephod because even when Saul tried to perform the priestly duties, he was not allowed. Because just because you're king doesn't mean that you're a priest. So David, whoa, hold up, you can't do that. You can't do that. But catch this. David had a New Testament relationship with Jesus in the middle of the Old Testament. He was dancing to his own tune. He had peace like a river that was flowing up from inside of him. And he said, somebody give me the phone. I want to talk to Jesus. I want to talk to Jesus. And nobody denied him. Nobody denied him. And David goes in and he hears from Jesus, and he ends up learning from Jesus a plan that will set his family free. They go in, and everything that the enemy had stolen from them, Jesus restored to them, and more. And more. Why? Because Jesus is the friend who sticks closer than a brother. He's the one that you can depend on. He's the one that you can lean on even when everybody else forsakes you. People will let you down, but Jesus will always hold you up because He is holding you up. The Bible says that all things consist and exist because of the strength of His power. But not only is Jesus available, not only is He able, but He's there waiting to hear from you. I know that's a crazy thought to think about. Like some of you, if you tried to get the mayor on the phone, like you would have to wait. Some of you, like if you wanted to call up your senator, you wanted to call up your congressman, and say, "Can I get back to you like in 2 months?" I don't know if you're aware, we're in the middle of a crisis. But Jesus is there waiting on your call. In fact, I want to tell you what Jesus says. He says, "Anyone who calls out to me will never be put on hold." Can I get an amen? Jesus says, "Anybody who calls out to me will not be put to shame, but I will answer them. And I will show them great and mighty things." David called out to Jesus, and it led to his salvation. I want to invite you right now, wherever you're at, to close your eyes and bow your head. Have a moment just between you and God. Have a moment just between you and God. And first, I want to talk to those who are on the outside. Man, if you don't know Jesus, He's not just a historical figure. He's alive. Right now, the Bible says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. And in not of yourselves." Jesus, He is God's gift to you, not of works. At least any person should boast. You can call out to Jesus by faith right now, and He will answer you. You can surrender control. You can surrender lordship of your life to Jesus right now, and He'll begin directing your steps. You can call out to Him. You see, the thing about Jesus is we come to Him by faith, but once we meet Him, it's no longer by faith because now we have Him. Now we have Him. So you can call out to Him. The Bible says that what separates you from Jesus is your sin. But Jesus went to the cross and His blood was shed so that your sins could be forgiven and so that you could be washed clean. Simply call out to Him. I want to invite you in the privacy of your own home, in the privacy of your own car. Nobody else looking around, because here's the thing, guys. When you enter eternity, you're not going to be going as a group. You're not going to march into heaven with your church. That would be cool. You're not even going to go with your family. It's just going to be you and Him. And He's going to ask one question. Did you know me? Did you know me? You can call out to Him right now. You can say, "Jesus, I'm not sure how this works, but I trust you. I want to know you. Yeah, I know there's things in my life that are a mess, honestly. But I surrender my life to you right now in this moment. And I ask that you would clean me up. And that you would make me new. Put your Spirit inside of me, Jesus. I want to be yours for the very first time." Amen. The Bible says that if you make a decision to call out to Jesus today, that there is a celebration that is taking place, that heaven is literally losing their mind. Because you've been washed clean and brought into relationship with the one who is and was and who always will be. But I want to take just a moment now, and I want to talk to Christians. There may have been a time in your life when you were close to Jesus. Maybe when you had some isolation, you were alone, and there was no one to depend on except Him. And you wrote your worship songs, or you read your prayer journal, and you got up early, and you looked at the Word, and Jesus became the passion with which your heart beat for Him. But over time, you got distracted, like David. You're not You're not a shepherd anymore. You're not yet a king. You're somewhere in the middle, and you're trying to figure out parenthood and career and college and life and what's true and what's not true. And somehow Jesus just sort of got left at home. And you know that you're empty inside. But you don't know what to do. I want to let you know that Jesus is still with you. Philippians says that He, the one who started the work, is the one who will complete the work. And even in the moments where it seems as if you wander from Him so far that you can never find your way back home, just know you don't have to, because He knows exactly where you're at. Can I tell you that Jesus loves you so much that it says the very hairs of your head are numbered? The very thoughts and intents of your heart are kept in the palm of His hand. But He wants to be with you. He didn't die for you so that you could just go to heaven. He died for you so that you could be with Him now. And so maybe there was another time in your life that you were closer to Jesus than you are right in this moment. I want to invite you, like David, to just strengthen yourself, not in your own ability, but in His ability. To reach down deep within you as a believer and to find Him. And you may say, well, Pastor Sam, I don't want to reach too deep. There's a lot of nasty stuff in there. Just let Him throw it away. Let Him clean you up. Let that clean water start to bubble in and the mud starts to push out of the way until you experience Him. Refresh yourself. You know that's what revival is. That's what repentance is. The Bible says it's the goodness of God that leads to repentance. Repentance is a time of refreshing. When you experience Him, so simply call out to Jesus and maybe say something like this: Jesus, I didn't mean to go that far. I just wanted to explore. I didn't mean to step away that far. But I realize now that it's getting dark and I'm scared. And so I'm calling out to you. Jesus, I can't call out to anyone else. They wouldn't understand. So I'm calling out to you. Thank you for being my Savior. Thank you for being a friend who never leaves and who never forsakes. Jesus, I pray that you would restore the joy of my salvation. Make my spirit right, so that I can go into your presence and experience your goodness and your mercy forever and ever. Amen. Let's stand as we worship Him.
I want you to spend these last few minutes that we have together, right where you are, knowing that our God is omnipresent. He is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. He meets you where you are. I trusted Him in the back seat of a car. I love God's church. But God wants to meet you right where you are today. He is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. Worship Him. Know Him. Oh Lord, you're beautiful. Your face is all I see. And when your eyes are on this child, your grace surrounds to me. Oh Lord, please where once burned bright and clear. Replace the lamp of my first love that burns with holy flame. I want to take your word and shine it all around. First help me just to live it, Lord. And when I'm doing well, help me to never seek around, for my reward is giving glory to you. Telling, Lord, you're beautiful. Do you know him? Your face is all I see, and when your eyes are on this child, your grace abounds to me. Invite you, he's calling. Oh Lord, you're beautiful. Follower Jesus, spend time with me. Your face is all I see, and when your eyes are on this child, your grace abounds to me. Worship him where you are. Oh Lord, you're beautiful. Your face is all I see, and when your eyes are on this child, your friend that Pastor talked about this morning that sits closer than a brother. He may have been in isolation for, seems like forever, but he's there. Is he calling you? He invites you to be aware of his presence and his working in your life. He is that friend. One more time. Oh Lord, you're beautiful. Your face is all I see, and when your eyes are on this child, your grace abounds to me.